Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our April 8th Principals Town Hall meeting. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning, taking time out of your day to come and to hear about the wonderful updates that have happened in our middle and high school since the last time we got together back in February. Please take note that this session is being recorded and that we ask that you keep your videos and your audio mute so that we can save bandwidth and have a more robust experience. You can send your questions to the questions here in the chat box. And with that, let's get started here. I would like to open this up with a word of prayer. So if you would please join me in prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we're just so thankful, Lord, that we get to go to school. We get to be in a place like ICS that we have the technology to be able to meet like this in the middle of a pandemic, Lord. We're so thankful that things are beginning to open up more and more each day. Lord, we're thankful for what's coming at the end of this month with the new additions and the new restrictions that are being lifted. And we're thankful that you're involved in all of this. Lord, when this pandemic began just over a year ago, Lord, you had every idea of how it was all going to end, Lord, and you protected us, our school, our community, every step of the way, Lord. And we're just so thankful and grateful for what you've done for us over this past year. And Lord, what plans you have for us in the future. Lord, we're thankful for a great school year. We ask you for blessings and protection and guidance as we finish off the year. Lord, we pray especially for our seniors and those students who are leaving that, Lord, that they finish strong, that they continue to build those relationships here, Lord, and that they see this as not as a negative as they're leaving their friends, Lord, but that they get to go on and make new friends and they get to have friends from all over the world, Lord. And we're just so thankful that they've come to us. We're thankful that you placed them here for a long time or a short time. Lord, bless this time, Lord. May it be honoring you, Lord. May I speak clearly. May the parents feel informed and may they feel encouraged to ask questions. And of the questions they ask, Lord, provide me with the answers that can help. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen. Well, again, welcome and thank you for coming. I'm so thankful you're all here. I'm so glad that we do get to meet in some way, shape, or form. And I want to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we will be talking about in these principal town halls. The purpose of them, we'll go over that a little bit for those of you who weren't in the last couple that Mr. Kirshner and I have held together and separately. Some celebrations and what to watch out for in the next couple of months. We have a curriculum update and a subject spotlight that will be led by none other than our Director of Teaching and Learning, Ms. Kara Stuckey. And we'll finish it off with Q&A. And really the Q&A is at the heart of what these town hall meetings are about. These town hall meetings are for you, the parent, and our community. They're meant to be an informal chat between you and I. In normal times, they would be in a room over a cup of coffee and perhaps some donuts, and it would be fairly informal. It would be parent driven. You would come in with your questions, your concerns, and your celebrations. You would get some updates on things that have happened in the school division that perhaps you wouldn't be aware of, like we'll do today. We should also get an opportunity to meet with a couple of teachers and go through a mini lesson of what they do in your child's classroom. And that's one of the hopes, that when we move towards live or hybrid sessions, that we will be able to have a teacher come in and give a lesson of what might be happening in grade 8 math, for example. But that's the purpose, and it really is about you. So even if you haven't submitted questions at the beginning or over the last couple of weeks on the form, please feel free to submit your questions to questions here. I'd be happy to answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'll find the answer and get back to you as quickly as possible. So some of the celebrations I want to discuss. The first one is college admissions. Now we're in the early days of college admissions. Some schools in the United States and the UK have pushed out their acceptance letters over what was our Easter break. There are still a large number of schools in the United States that wait until mid-April to send out those letters of acceptance. Schools in Canada and Australia have not sent anything out yet. Canada should start within the next few weeks, but could run up as far as June. And Australia typically doesn't even start beginning taking applications until later on in the year. And so much of our information out of Australia will come at the beginning of next semester or over the summer. But we've already had students of our 20 seniors, we've had students accepted into 13 universities to start out. These universities are mostly from the United States, but you'll see one that's in the upper left-hand corner, the University of Westminster. And I highlight that one because one of the biggest questions that we get asked here at ICS in our middle and high school is, can our students go to schools outside of the United States? The University of Westminster is ranked in the top 100 universities in the world, and it has an acceptance rate of 18%. So that means of all the applications they get, only 18% of them get accepted. And we've got a student here at ICS that's got accepted into this university out of the United Kingdom that has a very low acceptance rate. So that's quite good for us. It does speak volumes to not only what we've done as ICS, but more so what that student has done here at our school. We have students who've got accepted in Michigan State University, a top 10 US college that has a 71% acceptance rate. You can see Drexel University, Penn State, Oregon State, University of Tennessee, Knoxville. But there are several tech universities that are highlighted here: Michigan Technological University, Virginia Tech, and Stevens Institute of Technology. I highlight these three because these three universities are really geared towards our science and math students. And those, because they're so specialized, students end up graduating from there. The job rate is astounding. It's in the 90%, and they come out with some really high salaries. So coming right out of university, they've got a job, and it's a job that pays really, really well. Stevens Institute of Technology is one of the top universities in the United States for technology, and it has only a 40% acceptance rate. So these are some really things some real universities that we can be proud of from our students, and they're only at the tip of the iceberg right now. Many more university acceptances will be coming in the coming days and weeks. And as we do, we'll be posting on social media to celebrate the other universities that we see from our seniors this year. For those of you who had children in the middle school and high school one-act plays, you'll remember that just before we went into Week Without Walls, we were able to get a significant number of people on campus. That's a celebration in itself, that almost a year to the day from when the last time that we had everybody on campus here at ICS, we were able to get the families of actors and stage managers here on campus to watch a live performance of 3 one-act plays. I posted to Schoology how proud I was of all of these students and Mr. Babb for all the hard work that he put into this and what the students put into this. This was a wonderful night of laughter and of just fun, and just seeing the talents of so many students outside of your typical brick and mortar classroom or sports. We saw people who were known to be basketball and volleyball players acting out and dressing up as people you would never even think, as animals, as members of the opposite gender, and just being silly in a way that you wouldn't typically think. Students who never speak, who you hardly ever see speak out in the hallways, who seem to be very shy and reserved, come out of their shells and take on leading roles. It was, to me, one of the reasons why I love the arts. It gives an opportunity for our students who can sometimes go under the radar to really, really shine. And this was a shining night, not only because God blessed us with the opportunity to be able to have parents and families on campus to see this, to be able to have actors on stage, unmasked. I mean, these are all things that a couple of years ago, we'd be laughing if we thought we'd celebrate it, but my goodness, it's such a blessing from God that we were able to put this off, and the students did an amazing job, and Mr. Babb did an amazing job putting it together. Our facilities team, our security team for making making it a safe night and making it a night that we could get approval from the government and not have any negative feedback from authorities. It was a wonderful night and something that we really should be celebrating. And I would encourage any parents that are out there to, give your child, if they were in this, another pat on the back. If you're friends on social media with the parent or the child of someone who was in this, give them a shout out, a thumbs up on social media, because it was an amazing, amazing event and something to be very proud of. Leading up to our this night of one act plays, we had International Week, and it really did have to be different this year. Dr. Rader and I were joking how neither one of us have ever experienced what International Week looks like and feels like, or International Day, I guess it was here, International Night. We had no idea, and we wanted to celebrate the various cultures that exist here at ICS. We call ourselves an American curriculum school, but we are an international school. We're a community of believers from all over the world, and that was represented so beautifully that week. We had students who dressed up on that Friday from Japan, from Africa, from India, from Korea. We had people who were dressed up from China, Canada, the United States, the various parts of the United States. I'd never seen so many cowboy hats in my entire life outside of being at the Calgary Stampede 5 years ago. It was just such a blessing to see, and the kids had so much fun. And the submissions for the writing, and the submissions for the arts, and the submissions for the design, some of those were just stunning. They were spectacular. They weren't done for any reason, other than to just celebrate their culture. We were quite strategic in announcing what the prizes would be and whether there would be prizes, because we wanted to see who out of their heart would actually submit. And while yes, after the prizes were announced, we had more submissions, there were a load of them before there were any known prizes being given out. The writing of all of our kids from down in kindergarten all the way up to our grade 12s, it was a thing to marvel. The creativity in their designs and just their artistic talent was really, really stunning. And we would like to see an International Week again next year. It may end in an International Night like we've had in the past, but a celebration of the whole week was something that just brought a nice vibe to the school. And seeing all those flags around it just raised the awareness of how diverse ICS really is, but how we're all bonded together in our love for Christ. It was a wonderful way to celebrate. Before we went on to Easter break, we had our Week Without Walls, another event that had to look different. I think that's the theme of everything we've done this year, is it's been different. But it was something to marvel at. If you get a chance to come on campus, I would invite you to see what Mr. Williams and his team worked on with our bleachers on the soccer field. It just looks stunning. I can look out my window now and see it, and I smile every time I see it. I managed to send a picture to Dr. Myung, last year's picture and principal, and she was quite impressed with it. But the work ethic of all the students that week, I managed to go around with a lot of things that was going on campus and speak to a lot of the leaders and get feedback from parents and teachers and NGOs and community members that we worked with. And there wasn't a negative, not one single negative piece of feedback that came from anyone. I saw students who were pushing and pulling wheelbarrows, who were picking up bricks, who were digging and hammering and sawing and shoveling. It was a lot of hard work, sweaty, dirty, hard work, but there was a sense of pride in what they did and a sense of teamwork in what they did, collaboration, communication, problem solving, all those soft skills that we want to organically develop in our students here. It was all on display in flying colors throughout that week. I commented to the group at the end of the week at our luau, at our wearing my sombrero, that I came here in November. I've shared this story before, and I came here in November, and there was something unique about this school. There's something I could feel about the school, something different, magical, inviting, drawing to ICS. And I think the Week Without Walls was the very first time I got to experience that whole scale. I got to see our senior students working alongside our sixth graders and helping lift them up and encourage them. And I got to see our sixth graders who saw the example that some of our older kids were doing and to really say, well, I want to do that. In my group in particular, I had three girls who, when we saw that we were going to be doing a fair amount of labor on the fence, they were kind of like, I'm not sure. And then the second day in, they're like, we want to do this. Yesterday, we didn't get to do any cement mixing. We want to mix cement. And they spent the entire morning, 4 hours nonstop mixing cement. And that's hard work. And they felt so good about it. They went home tired and calluses on their hands, but they felt so accomplished from it. We had kids that were working with our elementaries all week long. I've taught a little bit of elementary, man. I'm telling you, it's a lot of work. And what they did there and the planning that they went into putting off those games and the organization and being able to keep all of those kids, 30 kids in line and on task, the walk around was something special. I really wish the parents could have come in and felt it firsthand because it was amazing. Cleaning up at the beach, going out and working with the various NGOs. We got feedback from those NGOs. They want us back again next year. They want us back more than next year. They love what we did. They loved our passion and our heart to serve. And a huge hats off to Miss Bandy and Miss Lafferty for the work that they put in. But a real thanks to our students for the positive attitude that they showed. A few more pictures of some of the things that we managed to get out and do on campus, off campus. We spent a lot of time looking around and providing some things on Zoom and building and working with some homeless and some underprivileged people, crafts, shopping, and sending those items off to our students. And then we've had sporting competitions that have started back up. I talked a little bit last time about some of the sports that we've been able to have here in-house, but for the last few months or couple of months, we've actually had students from our school competing in the Community Basketball League, a league that's owned and operated by Sport SG here in Singapore. And we're highly competitive. It's really interesting to watch online on Zoom a group of students who are, for example, you can see in here, number 5, Ollie Fitzgerald. He's only a 10th grader and he's playing against a group of seniors and they're competitive and we're a small school. And, we're not from big clubs that practice 5-6 days a week, but these kids are pouring their heart into it and they're good and they're competitive. And it's really something to watch. And you can feel that on campus because I watch it on a Friday night and there's 15, 20 kids who are watching our kids play on Zoom. So even though they can't go to the live event, they're there and they're putting in comments and parents are there putting in comments. And it's a real nice community piece. So, and not only are we competitive, we're getting to go out and model good Christian values, win or lose, how we play. People walk up to Coach Wood afterwards and say, your kids are just, they work hard, they play hard, but they're just such good kids. They take everything, in a way that's different from a lot of other kids you see today. And that's such a blessing to hear that kind of feedback. There was a piece of feedback from our U12s that went to Singapore American School a while back. And the comment sent to Mr. Wood was, they want us back every day. And we've been back, I think, 5 or 6 times since, because our kids went in, they were respectful. They never questioned any of the guidelines that were on campus. They came in with masks on. They came in and, they kept them on until they were told to take them off. And they put them on before they were told to put them back on. They were respectful in terms of cleaning up after themselves. Their language, their attitudes, their response to things that perhaps didn't go their way was just so edifying to the people around them. And we get invites from schools all over the island because we send out kids who are good kids and are competitive. It's a real celebration and it speaks volumes to how you, the parents, have raised your children and how they've been educated here and just who they are as young men and women. And another celebration for us, Dr. Rader pointed out broadly, I think, in a newsletter of the new hires that we have coming. I've been in international education for 20 years now, going to be 21 soon. And I've never experienced a hiring season where a school has been provided for as well as we had. Yes, we only had to replace 4 people, but sometimes that can be really challenging, especially when you're looking for subjects like high school chemistry, biology, and mathematics. Those are really, really hard subjects to fill. And not only did we fill them with quality international experienced educators. We have Miss Rebecca Linsenberger, who's coming to us from China. It's our sister school in China, our NICS school in China, but she's also taught in Kosovo, Papua New Guinea, and the United States. Think of the cultural experience she's going to bring to our school. She's been international for almost 9 years, and she's been involved in student council. She's got AP experience. It's just a blessing to bring her in. And she was someone that we had to hire at the last minute with the unfortunate last minute words from Mr. Smith, who had to head back home due to family needs. Late in the game, you don't get good teachers often, but the Lord has blessed us by giving us these teachers. Mr. Garrett will be coming in with 8 years experience, and he's been working in a Christian school in Kazakhstan. Mr. Jean-Luc Francois, 12 years of experience with a master's in education, teaching multilingual learners. How important is that in an international setting where you have somebody who's not only multilingual himself, but also has a specialization in being able to teach multilingual learners? And that's not subject specific, that's across all subjects, just being able to connect with them and differentiate the learning so that they all get it. He spent the last, oh gosh, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it's the last 6 years in Korea, teaching at a Christian international school there. And before that was teaching in the island of Mauritius. And then finally, we have Mr. Ray Phoebus, who has been working in our NICS sister school in Korea, the International Christian School of Pyeongtaek. He comes to us with a master's in developmental genetics. He's got a wonderful story. He's a real fun-loving guy. He loves to connect with the kids and understand who they are and build relationships with them. You know, he's not just the person who's going to teach them chemistry and biology, but he's someone who wants to get to know them, you know, spiritually and build those relationships and leverage those relationships to help the students learn. We were looking some posts on social media. You know, he's highly involved in Spirit Weeks and student councils, and that at his school. I personally know his boss, his director, and his boss and director was highly disappointed that we managed to snatch him up. But he is someone that we're really happy to have. He was headed down a path of getting his PhD in developmental genetics and felt a calling from the Lord that wasn't what the Lord wanted him to do. And so he walked away from that and started teaching and got his teaching certificate and began teaching and has never turned back since. So these four are going to be a wonderful addition. They come from all over the world with a multitude of experience and education. And it's all international as well, which is a real blessing for us. Coming up for us, what to watch for, what to be looking out for. We have Spirit Week next week, so be on the lookout for the flyer that will explain the different days where we're dressing up. Map testing will begin. I believe Ms. Stuckey has sent out the information to everybody about when and where that will be taking place. And then finally, graduation. I have submitted yesterday the application for us to have a live graduation. As soon as I have the information about whether or not we are able to conduct the graduation live, I will be pushing that out to our senior parents and those who will be involved in graduation. I anticipate that we shouldn't have any problems. It's basically the same application as that I used for senior night, that I used for the drama production. And actually, I think the drama production probably would have been a bit more difficult to approve because you had so many people en masse on the stage, and that's not going to be the case with graduation. So be in prayer for that one. If there's one thing I can ask you all to do is to pray for a positive response on graduation. I know our kids would love to be able to have an in-person graduation. I know our parents and families would love to be able to have an in-person graduation. I would love to have an in-person graduation. So please be in prayer for that one for us. All right, that's it for the updates from me. I'm going to turn it over to Miss Kara Stuckey, who's going to update you on some work that's been done by the Bible department that will impact how Bible is taught and assessed here next year. Miss Stuckey?
All right, thank you, Mr. Harding, and welcome everyone. It's great to see many familiar names in the list here, so glad that you guys could join us today. I'm going to be doing 2 updates today, looking at some of the academic things that are happening here and sharing with you some of the great work that's happening here at ICS. So I want to start off with Bible. We are in our curriculum review cycle, and in that cycle, we choose one subject to focus on each year. So across elementary, middle school, and high school, we are looking at our Bible curriculum and really going deeper, doing some research, getting feedback from students, from parents, from teachers, looking at what other Christian schools are using for their curriculum, and then making a decision of what we want to do moving forward. So we're in that process of reviewing our curriculum. And so I wanted to share some of the great work that's been happening in the middle school and high school. Miss Bandy and Miss Lafferty have been doing, and it's really focused around Bible study methods. And so as they've been reviewing the curriculum, they've noticed that one of the gaps is just the skills that are being taught to students from 6th grade up about how to study the Bible. And so what they've done is they've created a vertical alignment of skills from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. And so they're teaching various Bible study methods using inductive Bible study. You may have heard of some of these before. For example, SOAP. SOAP is used in 6th through 8th grade. And SOAP stands for Scripture, Observation, Application, and Prayer. And then in the high school, we have one called SPECA. And then we also have OIA, that stands for Observation, Interpretation, and Application. And so what's happening is that as these students are studying the Bible, they're not only learning the facts and the content about who God is and his truth and the biblical principles, but they're learning how to study the Bible for themselves. I think this is really valuable. The skills to be able to comprehend the text, to analyze it. What does this mean? How can I make connections across the Bible, looking at the biblical narrative, looking at the big story of the Bible? And then how can I take this, what I've learned, and apply it to my own life? How does this impact me? So this is a really valuable work that we've been doing. It's really exciting to see the students as they are unpacking scripture and learning to do this independently on their own. They're learning skills, critical thinking, analysis, and interpretation. And these skills are not just only, applicable in Bible, but these are skills that we want to develop across all of our subject areas, right? We know with technology, we can access information all the time, but we need to know as humans and as followers of Christ, we need to know, okay, what does this information mean? Is it true? How do I know if it's true? And what do I do with this information? How does this impact my life? So students in this process are learning how to determine the validity of different worldviews in comparison with what the Bible teaches, and really to be able to unpack, okay, what do I believe? And what worldview am I living out in my life? And as they do that, they're learning how to defend their own position using critical thinking and reasoning. So really, this is exciting work that we're doing. I wanted to be able to share it out with you guys so that you could have conversations with your students and talk to them about how they're learning to study the Bible and use these methods so that as they're reading the Bible, they can know what it means for themselves, and then they can articulate what they believe, right? And how that impacts their life. We want our students to be able to be active participants in discovering God's truth, not just passive recipients. All right, so that is my highlight for Bible. I hope that was informative. We're going to move on to science now. So I have a science highlight for middle school. This is also kind of coming out of our curriculum review cycle. A few years ago, we adopted a new standards for science, and this was across our whole school, kindergarten through 12th grade. And so our science standards are called Next Generation Science Standards, or NGSS. And as we look at these standards, really the shift here with these standards is moving away from memorization of facts to moving to critical thinking and active investigations. So we recognized as we looked at our middle school science curriculum that there was a gap between what current curriculum we had and the standards that we wanted to implement. And so we began this process of doing research and looking for a new curriculum. And so this year we are implementing a new curriculum called Amplify Science. So what I'd like to do is just share a little bit, a highlight from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade of what the students are doing and how this is really powerful in their learning. So one of the elements of Amplify Science is an engineering internship. And so each grade, they get to take on the role as an engineer or a scientist with a problem that they need to solve. And this allows them to deepen their understanding of the content that they're learning in their different science units. So for example, in 6th grade, the students are learning about metabolism. And so for this project that they do, they are given the problem to design a health bar that's going to meet the metabolic needs of rescue workers and patients during a natural disaster. And so as they look at designing these recipes, they have to balance out different pieces of information. So they have to look at, okay, what are the metabolic needs of my target population? How is this bar going to taste? Because it needs to taste good, right? And then what is the cost of this bar going to be? And so the students are doing some research. They're using an online simulation to be able to build recipes and test them out and then analyze the results. This is really an iterative process that they go through, and they're looking for an optimal design. Once they decide with their team what their optimal design is, they write a report and they create a presentation to be able to present their recipe and then provide evidence supporting why this recipe is going to really be helpful in that natural disaster for those people. So that's our 6th grade project. In 7th grade, they're learning about phase change. And so they're looking at different materials and the properties of those materials. And so the problem that they are given in 7th grade is to design a portable baby incubator that uses phase change materials. So as you guys are probably aware, there are actually thousands of premature and low birth weight babies that struggle due to a lack of access of medical equipment. And this, of course, happens in poor or rural areas. And so the students are trying to design an incubator that's going to be able to keep the baby's average temperature close to 37 degrees Celsius. They need to be able to minimize the time that the baby's temperature is outside of a healthy range around 37 degrees. And of course, they need to keep the costs low. So this process that they go through is pretty similar to the 6th grade. They're doing research. They're using a digital model to test out their design, to get data, to analyze the data, and then to work towards what an optimal design would be. And in a similar way, the students are presenting their findings and providing evidence for why they think their design is the optimal design to be able to provide. All right, the last one that I'd like to share with you is 8th grade. So in 8th grade, the students are learning about force and motion. And so their problem is to design a supply pod that will deliver humanitarian aid packages to people in a disaster-stricken location. So when a natural disaster strikes, it can be hard to be able to get the materials and supplies to that place. And so often those supplies are dropped from a helicopter, right, or from a plane. And so what the students need to do is to be able to design a supply pod that's going to minimize the cargo damage. It's going to maximize the shell condition and, of course, keep costs low. So they go through a similar process. One of the really exciting pieces of this, and you may have heard about this if you have an 8th grader, is that they were able to do an egg drop. And so they actually started with the hands-on investigation of creating a container or some kind of device that's going to be able to keep an egg safe as it's dropped off from a high location. So they did this. And then after doing that, they used what they learned through their digital model to be able to create their new supply pod design. Of course, doing more analysis of data, iteratively designing and looking through and trying to make decisions and trade-offs of what could be the optimal design. Oftentimes, the students found that if they wanted to have the best materials, that design was going to be really expensive. So they had to make decisions and trade-offs of, okay, we want to be able to give more supplies to more people. So we need to be able to bring the cost down, but we also need to keep those supplies safe. So there's a lot of critical thinking and analysis that goes into this process. And I think one of the really interesting pieces As an educator, and even thinking about growing up in school, a lot of times we think about there being the one correct answer, right? I need to find the answer to the problem. But really what's happening here is these students are realizing that there's no perfect solution. There's no right answer. And so they've got to be able to analyze, trade off, and figure out, okay, what's going to be an optimal design, and why, using my scientific knowledge, is this design going to be the best design to use. So it's been a lot of really great skill building that's happening in our middle school science classes. Students are learning how to do research, how to analyze data, and then how to be able to explain and even argue to defend and justify why their design is the best design. Along with that, students are also learning about collaboration. How can I work well with my peers? How can I present my ideas both visually and verbally clearly to an audience, and really going deeper with their thinking. The last piece that I wanted to highlight for this science curriculum, and this is something you might have also noticed as I was talking about the 3 projects, but as the students are exploring these projects, they're actually looking at real needs in our world today, thinking about natural disasters, looking at poor and rural areas that we are not able to see here in Singapore. We don't regularly come across that. And then even thinking about what would happen if I was in a disaster, a natural disaster, what would that look like? How would that impact the people in that area? So as they're doing that, as they're looking at these different situations, they're beginning to develop empathy and learn how they can use their minds to serve other people. You know, a lot of times we think about service as a Christian ministry, right? So I'm going to be a missionary, I'm going to be a pastor, I'm going to work in a church. But really, we can do service in any field, right? In any area that we study. We can be servants. We can serve and provide for others through science, right? As being a scientist, we can improve the quality of life for those around the world. So thank you for letting me share that with you all today. Tried to keep it short and not talk too long, but there's a lot of exciting things that are happening. We are going to move now into our Q&A time. So we've got a few questions here. I'll be moderating this time. So Mr. Harding, I'll just kind of share a few questions with you, share a question one at a time, and you can answer those. Parents, feel free to add more questions in. As the questions come in, we will answer those. And we're, again, here to help you and provide information. All right, I'm going to start off with the first question. It says, when will ICS consider to resume choir as an ECA?
Oh, that's a great question. And the timing is perfect. So we actually, I'm not sure if anybody has received the information that I have through the Straits Times, but the Straits Times made an announcement a while back about large gatherings in churches and being able to sing and getting together for performances. And we had to wait a little while to find out what that meant to us as a school, because there's the regulations and then there's how they're treating schools. And we just recently were able to receive information from the Ministry of Education that we will be able to restart choir here at ICS. Now we're late in the year this year, which means really at the beginning of next year, right from the get-go, choir will be back on the schedule for our middle school and high school, and we'll be able to do that as an ECA if it has the interest as well. There are some limitations. 30 people is the maximum number that you can have, and those 30 people still need to be a meter apart. They still need to wear masks while singing. You can have up to 10 people singing 1 meter apart without mask, but in a single classroom, that can only be the same 10 people. So there are still some restrictions that we're working out, but the overall understanding of it and where we're going forward with it is we're going to have choir. Mr. Lau and I sat down yesterday and adjusted the schedule to put choir back in the middle school schedule, to put choir back into our high school schedule. Modern worship band will be back again next year. And when we do our ECAs next year, because the ECAs are soon be ending, we're going to have, we'll have choir as one of the options there as well. So we're really, really excited. It's just another blessing of how God is providing for us and protecting us all along the way. Every time I just think about how things have gone for us here at ICS, I just can't help but just thank him so much and just raise him up for how we've been provided for. Because there's still so many schools that are still online, going back online, can't do anything. And here we are, so blessed to be able to do this. So yeah, that's a great question. The timing was perfect.
All right, thank you for sharing that. I know earlier when you were sharing all of the celebrations, I was thinking the same thing, like, wow, I'm so thankful that we're really able to move more towards what we're used to at ICS, feeling like we're able to be a community and be together. And it's really encouraging, really exciting. All right, we've got another question related to ECAs. So maybe, Mr. Harding, you could just explain a little bit more about the intentions for ECAs next year.
Yeah, so the intentions right now going forward is that we'll have ECAs as we've had any other year at ICS. So typically we've had, and Ms. Stuckey, you've been here longer than me, but it's been 3 seasons of ECAs, and we intend to have 3 seasons of ECAs next year as well. And we will push out to our community to find out what is the interest in the different ECAs out there for you, like which ones do you want, to see where the need is. The expectation next year is that everybody in the community will contribute to supervising an ECA. So what that's going to do is it's going to give us more volume of supervisors. It doesn't necessarily mean that we could offer something that perhaps, it's no good to ask me to teach choir. I can assure you of that. But it might mean that we can have a student, which we've done with soccer this year, who can help teach choir. And we can have someone like me supervise just to make sure that everybody is safe and all the norms of a classroom setting are taken care of. So the plan is to go back to what it was before the pandemic for our ECAs. We'll have to look into restrictions on masks and safe distancing and numbers and those sorts of things. But in terms of the volume and the frequency, we're planning to be as normal as humanly possible from the beginning of next year.
That's great news.
It is.
All right. Our next question is asking about enrollment. So how has enrollment been looking for the new school year coming up in August?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been here to see how enrollment has been going in the past, so I'm relying on information from our admissions teams and those people who have been here before. Our enrollment is upwards of 80 to 85%, which is quite astounding, to be very honest, in the international school setting. Not counting the pandemic. I mean, that's something that's at every school is dealing with. Somehow, some way, we're most likely going to increase our enrollment from this year to next year. If all projections work out, we're going to have an increase in enrollment in the middle of a pandemic when companies are pulling people away. And so, yeah, you're going to see a healthy community here. You're going to see classrooms that are not too big. We want a nice balance of sizes, but we don't want PE classes that have 3 or 4 kids. I think it's going to be a nice balance in all 3 divisions next year for our enrollment. I think for the first time in a very, very long time, Ms. Stuckey, you can tell me when the last time was, but we're actually seeing a growth in middle school. That's a huge shout out to the trust that our parents have put back into us, the work of Mr. Kirshner and his elementary team, the work of our admissions team, and just how I think the middle school teachers and you, Ms. Stuckey, have led them in building a teaching and learning and a curriculum in the middle school that now is really challenging them in an appropriate way. It's really getting them ready for that next level. We're seeing, I think it's 34 is the number in 6th grade now, if I remember correctly, which is quite a number of students to have in 6th grade. So enrollment's looking really good. But we're always looking for new students to bring in and to give an opportunity to learn and love and to come to Christ. So we encourage all of our parents, you're our best PR, you're our best advocates for our school. And so we encourage you to step out and speak about us and let us know if you have people who are interested.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have another question here. It's talking about internships. So it says, are there plans to work with relevant partners, to offer internships or research opportunities for our high school students?
Yeah, I know there were talks about that happening prior to the pandemic happening. And then with all the restrictions, it was just one of those things that we knew we had to limit interactions, try and keep our little bubbles. We started the year with, assigned seating in the classrooms, assigned seating at lunch, assigned play groups or mingle groups for recess. And we kind of opened that up as the year has passed. And now we do need to start think about reconsidering where can we send or who can we get involved with in terms of partnerships for internships and guest speakers coming in. We've had some on Zoom, but as we learn more and more, and as the vaccine gets rolled out and the government starts lifting further restrictions and giving us a bit more guidance on whether or not our students can go out, say, for example, to one of the locations where Shell may operate if they want to go into perhaps petroleum engineering as a trade, as a vocation. Can we send them there? And is that within the guidelines of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health? They only just recently said that now you don't have to have shift work at offices. Now 75% of the office can be full. So it's really hard before, because if I can't, as an employer, if I can't bring in my entire staff, why would I bring in an intern? So as we go, but we're going to start looking into that. We just need a little bit more direction as to what next year will look like in terms of whether we can take advantage of those partnerships on a regular basis. But it's a great opportunity. And I'll call to the parents. You guys, we got a lot of you who work in industries that our students want to go into. And if you or your company or somebody, please, an email will come up. My email address will come up on the next slide, and let me know. And we can start building that catalog of partners that when we are able to do this, we can get, we're ahead by a little bit.
All right. We have another question that just came in. So it's asking about the senior trip. Is the senior trip still on?
The senior trip is still on. We're not going to go overseas. There's been a lot of planning by Miss Sin, who is the senior class mom representative. Seniors are raising money to help pay for the trip, but all that information has been sent out to the seniors. We're not canceling the senior trip. It's here in country. We've got events and activities that they're going to be doing. We will be staying in a hotel. We've worked out with the resort to get a special rate, and that's been all. The deposit has been put down on that. And they've helped put together a few days of activities and different things that we can do on the island, and team building and exploring. Our senior class sponsors will be taking charge of that. Mr. Lau, when he gets back on campus here in about 10 days, maybe, we will be able to really start planning and working with Miss Sin about how that's going to look. But all the plans are in place. We're going to do the senior trip as we planned it at the beginning of the year. Yes.
오늘 현아 씨 조금 늦는다고 하길래 앞에서 여기 동네 아니 또 어떤 아줌마가 왼쪽으로 쭉.
Mute your mic. Thank you.
All right. We have another question that just came in. So this question is about the transition from 8th to 9th grade. So they're wanting to know when the academic counselor will be meeting with their 8th grader to help them plan out their courses for 9th grade.
So Mr. Lau has he'll be in communication. He does have a session planned for later this month. We were really hoping it will be done basically virtually through Zoom, but he wants to meet with the 8th graders face to face. So as soon as he gets back on campus, he's going to start meeting with every single 8th grade student who's transitioning into 9th grade here to talk about questions like, what are your career ambitions? What do you think you want to study when you go off to university? And what do you want to do when you're done with university? And really looking at the colleges that would be, most beneficial to that student. Some of the reach schools, we call them, and then, safety schools, and then the ones that are kind of in between, and figuring out what are the entry requirements for those schools and setting up a 4-year plan that will give the student the best opportunity to get into those universities. So towards the end of this month, that will be starting to take place, and then into May. We've begun building the master schedule. So it's the skeletal master schedule is developed with the interest of making sure that courses that are common to, say, grade 9 are spread out so that it maximizes the number of courses that a student can take. And that's one of the things that we've been working on in the last month. Same thing for grade 10, trying to offset those so that they are scheduled in a way where it maximizes the 10th graders that need to take them, and then 11th and obviously 12th grade.
Okay, and a follow-up question to that, is there anything that the parents can do to help him plan out his credits?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, always. The parents are pivotal in this. The first thing you could do is to actually sit down and have a conversation with your child about what they truly are passionate about and what universities they think they can go to, which countries they would like to go. Start having those conversations about where it is they want to go and what it is they want to study. And sometimes those have to be difficult conversations where it's like, well, this country tends to be a bit more expensive and we can really, it's more feasible, it's more financially responsible for us to send you to another country. So let's look there. And sometimes as a parent myself, it takes a little bit of humility to say, oh, well, okay, maybe I hear you. You want to go into arts and design. Okay, well, let's explore that. You're not going to be the doctor. You're not going to be a lawyer. You're not going to be an engineer. And just having those honest conversations, but those open and two-way conversations and listening. Our graduation requirements really do set our students up so that if they change their mind in grade 11, it's not the end of the world. That's how our graduation requirements are really set up. They're set up to protect the student, that they can change their mind partway through. The real one is if you're looking at the technological universities, engineering, science, and math, you really want to try to have your math geared towards AP calculus in your senior year. And that will be highly, highly important for you.
Okay, let's stick on that same topic, transition. So we have a question from a 5th grade parent about how they can prepare their child for the transition to middle school. And they're also wondering if there will be a shadow day.
There will be a shadow day and there will be a parent information night, and all that's happening early next month. We're actually looking at the numbers. We want to make sure that we don't go past capacity in our classroom. So again, it has to be a little bit different. And Mr. Kirshner and myself, Miss Bandy and Miss Gunawan and Dr. Rader will be sitting down and planning out really a 3-day schedule where we can have 3 different groups transition, have a transition day in the morning. I was talking to a group of parents in the last joint principals town hall with Mr. Kirshner and I, that the biggest one for our students is the organization, right? Knowing which books to have at which time, knowing to charge their laptop, getting in and out of their locker, and moving from class to class. That's the biggest transition for all of our 6th graders. Ms. Stuckey, you've taught 6th grade, you've seen it firsthand. That's the big one. If once they get past that, it's almost silky smooth in many respects. But those first couple of weeks, knowing where to be and when to be there and having all the right materials, that's the big one. So I think as parents, if you want to help your child, I would say a calendar. Google Calendar. The agenda, the hand calendars are great, but let's face it, many of our children have phones. They'll have a laptop next year, they'll have a Chromebook next year, and they'll be Google. And Google can send reminders to your phone. You can get notifications, and just having everything on a Google Calendar for your child, and have your child share their calendar with you so that you can see what they have coming up. And just being that collaborative conversation and helping them plan everything out, that'll go a long, long, long way in helping them organize themselves. I can tell you that from experience. I've got a 6th grader this year, so that's really helpful.
All right, thank you for that helpful advice, Mr. Harding.
Very well.
So our next question is, when will the next town hall be?
Dr. Rader is doing a town hall toward the end of this month. Yes, so that will be the next town hall for us. And then the next town hall that I do will be at the beginning of next year, hopefully in a hybrid fashion, but we'll need to wait and see what guidance comes out from the ministry to let us know whether we can or cannot have parents on campus in some capacity.
Yeah, we hope that will be the case, definitely.
Yeah, you can see there'll be an email pushed out about Dr. Rader's town hall, I'm sure, from our development office over the next little while.
All right, we have a question about phones. So what are the rules for middle schoolers with their phones?
So the rules for phones are, it depends on whether they have the token or not. That's the first piece. We're encouraging everybody to get the token. It's really, it takes away a lot of distractions. But if they don't have the token, the rule is that their phone needs to be on with Bluetooth running, so that the Trace Together app is working the way it's meant to be working. They should silence their phone once they've checked in on campus, place their phone into their backpack or into their pocket, but it really shouldn't be seen or heard unless the teacher gives permission for that to happen. During transitions and lunch times, we're not terribly concerned about the use of the phone. And to be very honest, we haven't been strict about it, and there hasn't been a whole lot of use of it. It's one of those pieces of evidence that say, you know, if you give them the freedom and you just hold them accountable gently, it seems to have worked out really, really well. I know a lot of teachers were surprised by it, but it's worked out really well there. But during class time, when they're meant to be focused on something, they're meant to be not seen and not heard, but they must remain on unless the child has the Trace Together token.
Okay, great. I think that's it. I don't see any more questions. So Mr. Harding, I'll pass it over to you so you can wrap up our time together.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Ms. Stuckey, for moderating the Q&A and all that wonderful information on the Bible and science curriculum. Learning about the science curriculum for me as a parent with a middle schooler it was really cool to know that they're solving real problems and developing all those 21st century learning skills that we want and companies want to have in their employees. And for parents, thank you so much for submitting questions and your attendance and your support of us all year long. This has been a very trialing year. God has been with us the whole way. We can see that in the multiple examples of the celebrations on all of these town halls. But your support has been really good for me in my first year at the school. Your trust in me and just how, you know, you've always been willing to offer advice and feedback that has helped me grow as a principal and helped me grow the middle and high school curriculum. It's been a delight and this today, and it's been a delight the whole year. And I look forward to the next 10 or so weeks of working with you and working with your children. Thank you for joining. We'll see you, I hope, at Dr. Rader's Town Hall at the end of the month. The recording to this meeting will be sent to you for your email, should you need to watch it. And keep an eye out for the weekly announcements that go out for more information on Dr. Rader's Town Hall and other events that will be coming up. Have a blessed day. We look forward to seeing you on campus and online. Bye-bye.
Bye.